For decades, the United States was the dream destination, whether for students, immigrants, or investors. But now, the tides are shifting. In 2025, more and more countries are turning away from the US and choosing Canada instead. From immigration policies and trade deals to education and global diplomacy, Canada is quietly outmaneuvering its neighbor to the south. The results are stunning. Billions in investments redirected, thousands of skilled workers choosing Toronto or Vancouver over New York or Los Angeles, and governments strengthening ties with Ottawa instead of Washington. These are 9 countries now choosing Canada over the US one. India. For years, the US was the #1 dream for Indian students and professionals. Silicon Valley startups thrived thanks to Indian engineers, while American universities attracted some of the brightest minds. But lately, Canada is winning that race. Why? Immigration. The U.S. green card backlog for Indian applicants can stretch decades, leaving skilled workers in limbo. Canada, on the other hand, offers clearer, faster paths to permanent residency. Its Express Entry program has welcomed hundreds of thousands of skilled Indian professionals, many of whom would have chosen the U.S. in the past. Education tells the same story. In 2024, Canada overtook the U.S. as the top destination for Indian students. Cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary are full of Indian communities, making the transition smoother than moving to an American city where immigration policies feel increasingly uncertain. There's also economics. Canadian companies are actively recruiting Indian tech talent, offering competitive salaries with the added benefit of permanent residency for families. For Indian parents, that stability matters more than just high pay. The result? Thousands of Indian engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs who once dreamed of Silicon Valley are planting roots in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa instead. The U.S. still has the big names, but Canada has the momentum. 1. China. China has long been a complex partner for both the U.S. and Canada. But while U.S.-China relations are strained with tariffs, tech restrictions, and political tensions, Canada is quietly becoming a preferred partner. On the education front, Chinese students have historically made up the largest group of international students in the U.S. But with rising tuition costs, tighter visa restrictions, and concerns about U.S.-China political hostilities, more Chinese students are choosing Canadian universities. Canada offers lower tuition, a friendlier visa process, and a safer environment amid rising anti-Asian sentiment in the U.S. Trade is another big shift. Canada continues to export billions in natural resources, especially agriculture and energy, to China, and has maintained a more stable relationship compared to the U.S., which is caught in ongoing tariff wars. Chinese companies are also investing heavily in Canadian real estate and clean energy projects. Vancouver and Toronto are hubs for Chinese business, while the U.S. market feels increasingly closed off due to scrutiny and restrictions. The U.S. once held a monopoly on Chinese students and investors. Now, Canada's stability and openness are pulling Beijing closer to Ottawa, at America's expense. 1. Mexico. Mexico and the U.S. share one of the most important borders in the world. But despite geography, the relationship has been rocky, from immigration crackdowns to trade disputes. That's where Canada steps in. Through the Canada-Mexico visa-free agreement, Mexicans enjoy easier travel and work opportunities up north. Meanwhile, U.S. immigration hurdles, like visa lotteries, deportations, and lengthy waits, have made life harder for Mexican families. Education is shifting too. More Mexican students are applying to Canadian universities where tuition is lower and residency options after graduation are clearer. In contrast, U.S. visas often end abruptly after studies, forcing students back home. Trade tells a similar story. While the U.S. remains Mexico's largest partner, Canadian investment is rising fast, especially in mining, agriculture, and clean energy. Canadian companies are providing jobs and building partnerships in Mexican regions often overlooked by U.S. corporations. There's also cultural respect. Many Mexicans view Canada as more inclusive and cooperative. Seasonal workers often report better treatment and clearer pathways in Canadian programs compared to the often hostile environment in U.S. agriculture. Mexico still relies heavily on the U.S., but the growing trust and opportunity with Canada mean more families, students, and businesses are looking north, not just across. 1. Nigeria. Nigeria has one of the fastest growing populations in the world, with millions of young, educated citizens seeking opportunities abroad. For decades, the U.S. was the top choice, but Canada is now taking that lead. The key factor? Immigration policy. Canada's express entry system actively recruits skilled workers, and Nigerians are among the top applicants accepted. The pathway to permanent residency is far clearer than the U.S. green card system, which is often oversubscribed and unpredictable. Education is another big driver. Nigerian families highly value international education, and Canada's universities have become a prime destination. Lower tuition fees compared to U.S. schools, combined with work opportunities during and after studies, make Canada far more attractive. Safety and inclusivity also matter. Many Nigerians have faced discrimination or visa denials in the U.S. In Canada, the perception is more welcoming, with established Nigerian communities thriving in Toronto, Calgary, and Winnipeg. This creates a strong support network for newcomers. Economically, Canadian companies are investing in Nigerian oil and gas sectors, as well as tech partnerships. These ties are growing faster than Nigeria-U.S. cooperation, which has stalled under shifting U.S. foreign policy priorities. For Nigerian families, Canada offers something the U.S. increasingly struggles with: opportunity paired with stability, and that's why the shift north is undeniable. 5. Brazil, Latin America's giant, has traditionally maintained strong ties with both the U.S. and Canada. But in recent years, the balance has tilted northward toward Ottawa. One major reason? Climate policy. Brazil, home to the Amazon rainforest, has been under international pressure to reduce deforestation. Canada has stepped up as a partner, offering climate financing, technology, and green investment, areas where U.S. cooperation has often faltered due to shifting administrations. Trade is also key. Brazilian agricultural exports, coffee, beef, soybeans, are finding smoother access to Canadian markets, with fewer political strings attached compared to U.S. trade deals. Canadian mining companies are heavily invested in Brazil, strengthening economic cooperation. Education is another quiet shift. More Brazilian students are enrolling in Canadian universities, especially in engineering and environmental sciences. The U.S. still hosts many, but rising visa difficulties and high tuition are pushing families to see Canada as a better long-term choice. Tourism and cultural exchange are growing too. Brazilians appreciate Canada's reputation as inclusive and multicultural, and cities like Toronto and Montreal are increasingly popular for work and study abroad programs. For Brazil, Canada represents a stable partner in trade and environmental cooperation, areas where U.S. relations often fluctuate, and that consistency is winning hearts, minds, and investments. 1. Philippines. The Philippines has long been one of the largest sources of immigrants to the United States. Filipino nurses, caregivers, and professionals have powered U.S. hospitals and industries for decades. But now, Canada is becoming the top destination. Why? Healthcare immigration programs. Canada actively recruits Filipino nurses and healthcare workers, offering permanent residency and family sponsorship options. The U.S., meanwhile, struggles with lengthy backlogs and restrictive quotas. For Filipinos seeking not just jobs but family stability, Canada is the better bet. Education is another factor. Filipino students are enrolling in Canadian colleges at record rates, drawn by lower tuition and easier work permits. Unlike the U.S., where student visas often end abruptly, Canada provides post-graduation work opportunities and clear immigration pathways. Family reunification policies are also stronger in Canada. Filipinos value close family ties, and Canada's immigration system allows for faster sponsorship of relatives compared to the U.S. process. Economically, Canadian companies are investing in Philippine outsourcing and tech sectors, creating deeper bilateral ties. The Philippines-Canada relationship feels collaborative, while U.S. policies often feel transactional. For many Filipino families, the choice is clear. Canada offers opportunity, inclusion, and a future. The U.S. still attracts some, but the shift toward Canada is accelerating. 1. Pakistan. Pakistan has historically looked to the U.S. for education and economic opportunities. But as visa restrictions tighten, more Pakistanis are turning to Canada. Education is a major factor. Thousands of Pakistani students are now enrolling in Canadian universities every year, drawn by lower tuition costs, scholarships, and easier student visas. Unlike the U.S., where rejection rates for Pakistani applicants have risen, Canada is seen as more open and welcoming. Tech and skilled migration are also driving the shift. Pakistani IT professionals are increasingly accepted into Canada's express entry system, with many settling in Toronto's growing tech sector. The U.S. H-1B visa system remains uncertain, with limited spots and no guarantee of permanent residency. Canada's programs, by contrast, offer clear, long-term opportunities. Community support also plays a role. Canada has a growing Pakistani diaspora, making integration easier for newcomers. From cultural centers to halal food markets, the sense of belonging is much stronger. Politically, Canada has maintained more balanced relations with Pakistan compared to the U.S., which often ties aid and cooperation to geopolitical tensions. This stability is attractive to both governments and individuals. For Pakistani families, Canada represents education, opportunity, and stability. 3 things harder to find in the U.S. right now. 1. Germany. Germany is a U.S. ally, but even here, Canada is quietly gaining ground. In trade, Germany is deepening cooperation with Canada, particularly in energy and minerals. With Europe seeking alternatives to Russian fuel, Canada has become a key partner for liquefied natural gas and hydrogen projects. The U.S. is also in the mix, but political uncertainty has pushed Germany to seek Canada's steadier commitment. Research and innovation tell the same story. German universities and companies are forming partnerships with Canadian institutions in fields like artificial intelligence, biotech, and clean energy. Canada's immigration system also makes it easier for German researchers to relocate with families, compared to restrictive U.S. visa policies. Education is another factor. More German students are considering Canadian universities, attracted by English language programs, lower costs, and cultural openness. While the U.S. still has prestigious names, safety concerns and political instability are turning some German families away. Cultural diplomacy is thriving too. Canada and Germany share strong commitments to climate action, multilateralism, and human rights, making their partnership feel natural and forward-looking. The U.S.-Germany alliance remains strong, but the quiet shift toward Canada reflects a growing global trend. Stability and inclusivity are beating size and prestige. 1. Kenya, one of Africa's fastest-growing economies, is increasingly choosing Canada over the U.S. Green energy is a big reason. Canada is partnering with Kenya on renewable projects, from wind farms to geothermal development. U.S. investment exists, but often comes with political strings, while Canadian cooperation feels more practical and consistent. Immigration is another factor. Skilled Kenyan professionals are entering Canada through its immigration system in growing numbers, especially in healthcare and technology. The U.S., with its restrictive quotas, offers far fewer openings. Education plays a role too. More Kenyan students are heading to Canadian universities, especially in medicine and engineering. The U.S. still attracts some, but costs and visa hurdles make Canada more accessible. Diaspora communities also matter. Kenyan Canadians are growing in number and influence, creating networks that welcome new arrivals. For many Kenyan families, knowing there's an established support system makes the move easier. Tourism and cultural exchange are increasing too. Direct flights between Nairobi and Toronto highlight how Canada is investing in ties with East Africa, while U.S. connections remain limited. For Kenya, the shift isn't about rejecting the U.S., it's about finding a more reliable, welcoming partner. And right now, Canada is filling that role. 1. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has historically had close ties with the U.S., especially in energy and defense. But lately, Canada is gaining surprising ground. Education is a major factor. Thousands of Saudi students are now studying in Canada under government scholarship programs. Canada offers safer cities, lower tuition, and easier visas compared to the U.S., where political tensions and security concerns have made families cautious. Investment is another area of growth. Saudi sovereign wealth funds are pouring billions into Canadian real estate, infrastructure, and tech startups. The U.S. remains a key partner, but political instability and scrutiny over Saudi ties have redirected some investments north. Healthcare partnerships are also expanding. Canadian hospitals and universities are collaborating with Saudi institutions, particularly in medical research and training. These programs are growing faster than U.S. initiatives, which often face political pushback. Culturally, Saudi families feel Canada is more welcoming for long-term stays. The ability to bring families, enjoy stable residency options, and live in inclusive communities makes Canada attractive. The U.S.-Saudi relationship is still strong, but Canada is emerging as a quieter, friendlier alternative. For Saudi students, investors, and families, Ottawa is increasingly beating Washington. The U.S. used to be the undisputed leader in education, immigration, and global partnerships. But in 2025, the tide is shifting. From India to Saudi Arabia, more countries are choosing Canada for stability, opportunity, and inclusivity. So what do you think? Is this a temporary trend, or is Canada truly replacing the U.S. as the world's top destination? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more global breakdowns like this.